As we're learning more about the UFO declassification program, some of the details are just mind-blowing. We have different species, all different kind of vehicles and modalities and powering systems. But the most important connection is one that the deep state and the mainstream media is not willing to talk about. I'm going to connect all the dots right now for you. Let's get to it.
We are not alone. The Pentagon released the UFO files a few weeks back, and we just found out over 1 billion people have visited the site. 1 billion. It's got to be a record. The War Department says more files will be released soon. UFO experts and top researchers have been investigating aliens for years. Their sources say dozens of crashed UFOs have been recovered, and what they found inside? Shocking.
And do people think that there's one type of non-human intelligence that's visiting the Earth, or is there many, many types?
People who have been involved in recoveries have said
there are at least 4 separate types.
So think about this. Our typical mind's eye shows us some comic book rendition of what some alien looks like. What these experts are saying is that there's 4 at least that we've recovered and have identified. They're going to go over the different particulars of what makes these different non-human species unique. But the most important thing here comes just towards the end of this clip, where I need to show you what the mainstream media is just not willing to say.
Now, I have not had direct access to that, but I believe the people who I talked to.
4 different types of life.
4 different types of life.
4 different species of aliens. Another scientist called them Greys, Nordics, Insectoids, and Reptilians. All of them have 2 arms and 2 legs, just like us. Experts speculate the reptilians are scaly with long tails like a lizard. Insectoids look like a praying mantis. The Greys look like your classic movie alien, and the Nordics look like a regular Swedish guy, but 7 feet tall. We haven't seen the evidence, but Pete Hegseth says more evidence is coming, and there are a lot of believers in Congress.
I have seen evidence in a skiff that leads me to believe there are things we cannot explain, and I have observed things that are of non-human origin and creation. That's my opinion.
Releasing the files.
So let me jump past where Representative Luna just made comment. There's also been whistleblowers that have said on the record that there are interspecies breeding programs at least 8 different locations around the United States where the government is breeding human DNA with non-human DNA, the aliens, and making some hybrid being. These are some of the details that we've either yet to get or won't be getting, but there's a huge piece of the puzzle that Jesse is just yet to stumble onto.
Isn't easy. They've been hitting for years, and a lot of people want to keep it that way.
The problem we have right now is the deep state's fighting the president on release, and he kept his word, and I suspect some of our not so friendly comrades in some of our alphabet agencies are slow walking a lot of the information. It's about power, it's about control, and that's kind of what runs Washington.
So why is our own government fighting so hard to keep these secret? Well, 12 scientists have either gone missing or died. Now, we don't know if that's related, but people are scared to talk.
One I thought was going to do an interview, and then a couple days before sent me a message saying, after further consideration and long talks with my wife, I decided I'd be forfeiting my life if I participated in your interview. And I thought that was like very unsettling message to get, obviously, but also very specific word choice, you know.
Very specific word choice, and actually this forfeiting of your life has been going on for decades. Tim Burchett out of Tennessee, he was one of the people that had a clip here within Jesse's larger news story. I'm going to go now deeper into exactly why the scientists, we've had multiple top-level physicists go disappearing and forfeit their lives, if you will, just of late, but this has been going on forever, and this is going to start to connect all of the dots on what the Trump administration is trying to declassify or not. Let's get a little deeper. So you saw Tim Burchett in the earlier news clip from Fox and Jesse, but they didn't tell you or show you what I think is the most critical piece of the puzzle. Here's a little bit longer clip, and I'm going to stop it exactly where he gets to the critical piece.
Tell me all about the UFOs and the aliens.
Well, the problem we have right now is the deep state's fighting the president on release, and he kept his word, and I suspect some of our not so friendly comrades in some of our alphabet agencies are slow walking a lot of the information. It's about power, it's about control, and that's kind of what runs Washington.
All right, what do you think is in these files, and why do you think they're not trying to release any of them? Like they're partial release.
Part of it's going to be that they're going to have to admit that they've been lying to us all these years. And there could be some cover up of zero energy.
I'm going to pause it. Where Burchett doesn't go through, he didn't refer to it perfectly, and it's named the way it's known, is 0 point energy. What is it? You have to know this to be able to put together all of the pieces that are now starting to come together. I'm going to show you another clip here that's going to go into all kinds of detail into what exactly it is. First off, Tesla, the actual inventor, Tesla himself, when he moved to the States in the late 30s, he was working on a number of patents and a number of technologies that were harnessing energy for free, just from the air and from other places. Again, he wasn't necessarily digging a well to get oil. He was harnessing some of the electrical fields and magnetic fields that are surrounding all of us. And what ultimately Tesla and other scientists were working on at that time were trying to figure out alternate energy equations and solutions. This is not just solar and wind. This is about trying to find principles that could propel our combustion engines on the cheap, for basically for free and for multiples of miles. So imagine if your car could get 200,000 or 300,000 miles, or 200 or 300 miles to the gallon versus 20. That would change everything for the average household. Imagine if you could power your home for free and never have to pay a natural gas bill, never have to pay electricity. Think about the amount of wars that have been fought over trying to just get oil, right? This fossil fuel has dictated many of the wars and our posture with our enemies for decades, if not centuries. But where we're going to go next, and where Trump is trying to declassify, is going to be mind-blowing, because it's not just what we've learned that we can have these objects get propelled past what our physicists and top scientists can even understand. Meaning, how can something go so fast underwater? We just don't have that knowledge scientifically. How can something go the speed of sound and then stop? This is what we're starting to see in some of the object classifications of the UFOs. Now we're getting into different breeds and specifically an interbreeding program. But where Tim Burchett is the most enlightening piece of the puzzle: energy. That's exactly why the top scientists, we've had at least 12 disappear. But let me show you how this has been going on since the 30s and what we can do about it. Let's get further.
I think the U.S. government probably has unlocked 0 point or close to 0 point energy, which would be pulling energy out of the vacuum. We have inventors that have done that over and over and over.
And making energy of apparently nothing.
Well, we could start with, there's a man named Charles Pogue, who in the 30s tinkered with his carburetor and was able to get 200 miles a gallon. It's proven. It was engineers, investigated, scientists. It's totally proven. It worked. He was going to be a zillionaire or whatever. He's going to transform society. And the problem was, once the news of his engine got out, the oil stocks crashed. They just crashed. So the oil industry lobbied the U.S. government. We have to do something about this.
So again, who was in charge of the largest oil fields and the oil industry at that time, right? We have the Rothschilds, we have other extremely rich and like old money, big money, rich entrepreneurs of the 20s and 30s that were starting to get threatened by other scientists in the 30s before World War II that were starting to understand zero-point energy and ultimately harnessing alternate energy solutions. Well, listen to what happens to each one of these scientists as they start to get closer and closer to commercializing this or applying their discoveries outside of their laboratories and workshops.
And in 1951, the Invention Secrecy Act was passed. So now, if you patent any device that is more than 20% efficient, that's instantly classified.
Pause this. 1951, the Invention Secrecy Act. What this is doing is now blocking any major scientists and their inventions as it relates to energy or anything, that when they move to patent their technology and their discovery, anything past a 20% efficiency rating on the energy scale is immediately classified and taken by the military. So this can now start to come together and give us more details as to why we can't explain that certain projectiles are moving the way they are. Let me say this. I think it's clear, and we should all agree, that some of what we're seeing in this UFO program are truly just non-human origin, both the being and their transportation. But I think there's also a tremendous amount that's getting confused into what we're seeing that is military. Ours and other countries have had these discoveries for almost 100 years. Alternate propulsion, alternate energy, free energy, energy that goes past what we can learn with fusion, nuclear fusion, and nuclear fission. Right now, the best that we can do is a nuclear energy program. That's what's commercially out there. But what if for the last 100 years, there's been alternate energy propulsion mechanisms and alternate energy sources that have been kept from us? That's where we're going.
That is now a state secret.
What?
It's vital to national security. You can't talk about it. You can't build it. And you can't sell it unless you sell it to the U.S. military. You cannot do it. That went on for a while. And then there was a man named Tom Ogle. And Tom is this is the 70s now. He accidentally rewires his lawnmower engine to take the exhaust and pump it back into the carburetor. And this thing runs on a gallon of gas for 78 hours or something like that. So he reconfigures his car. It was like a 1976 Ford Galaxy, like a boat. And he's getting 200 miles to the gallon on the thing. He's offered $1 billion from an oil-producing country. Shell Oil offers him $25 million for the patent that he considers, but they're going to shelve it. So he says no.
So keep in mind, what they're outlining here is something that business has done for centuries. That if another business discovers something that would threaten the richer business's business model, where they're going to try to buy you out. And it's not because they want to take necessarily your invention or your thought process or your go-to-market strategy. It's because they want you to go away.
It's considered, maybe one of the biggest inventions of the century. Suddenly, Tom, without a history of drug use, stumbles out of a bar. He's drunk and he's killed. And that's the end of Tom Ogle's story. And that all disappears. All that research goes away. And this repeats over and over and over again till we get to Stanley Meyer. And you might remember Stanley Meyer and the water car, because this is the 1990s now.
A water car.
Now we have a vehicle that we're not even talking about fossil fuels and protecting a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We've got a car that runs on water using electrolysis, which has been around since the 1700s. But electrolysis requires a lot of energy and perfect water without impurities. But Stanley's figured out how to take tap water, put it into his car, and run his car on water. And what it does is splits the water into hydrogen, oxygen, runs on hydrogen. Hydrogen is a fuel, it works. And it works, and he drives it all over the place. It's all over the news. Engineers look at it. They say, this is the invention of the century. This changes everything. He's offered $1 billion and millions of dollars, and everyone wants his engine. And he's sitting at, I think he's sitting at a Cracker Barrel with his brother and some investors, and they raise a glass to toast the new investment to go into the future. And they take their toast, and Stanley suddenly doesn't feel well. He runs outside. He starts vomiting. His brother chases after him and says, what's going on? And Stanley says, they poisoned me, and he dies. And in the medical examiner's report, it says he died of an aneurysm. But if you read the report, you can tell the medical examiner didn't really like that, because he wrote some other stuff like, oh, he said he was poisoned, but toxicology doesn't really show it. But it says he died of an aneurysm. And that technology is now gone. The patent's useless because Stanley faked the numbers because he didn't trust the government, because he had another invention that most people don't know about before his water car, which was this toroid ring. A toroid is a donut. This donut-shaped ring that he invented that created energy out of nothing and levitated. But he patented it. It got hit with the Secrecy Act, and they made his life miserable.
So what's critical, I'm going to stop us here for a second, where Stanley was with his first invention that was going to change everything, right? His donut that could harness levitation and also energy. He patented it. And what happened? Well, the Patent Secrecy Act of 1951 came into play, and the military took it from him. So what did he do then with his water-powered car? He didn't patent it. Right? He was just going to go to market with it and not play the patent game, because immediately once you file for that patent, your invention's going to disappear. He knew that. So what did the deep state and the alternate forces do? Well, they poisoned him.
But people started to learn about that. And that brings us, there are other inventors in between. Townsend Brown invents this anti-gravity technology. He runs into all kinds of bad luck. All these men have their research stolen. They're broken into. They're carrying guns. They're threatened. They're disappearing. It happens over and over and over again. I have an episode on this. It's very sad. And we get to Floyd Sparky Sweet. He's my favorite, because his inventions, he videotaped all of his stuff. And you see him in his workshop. And Sparky, he's an engineer. He's a garage tinkerer, but he's an engineer. And this was supervised by a military physicist. Maybe it was a mistake. And you see him running a fan at high RPMs, and then he's got light bulbs, all of this energy, and it's all running off this little box the size of a deck of cards. And he puts in 0.03 milliwatts, and he gets out all the watts you want. It's a device that no matter what you attach to it, it just, whatever the need is, it will give you the energy. This is Sparky Sweet. This actually connects to UFO technology. I don't know if we'll go there, but it does connect. So
exactly.
Sparky's got this invention. He gets some help from a military physicist. Gets a visit late one night, two men in suits come talk to him, say goodnight. He has a heart attack. Ambulance comes, they grab Sparky. The wife is not allowed in the ambulance. He dies. Soon after, a couple of black vans pull up. They take all his stuff, all his notes, every piece of equipment, and it just disappears.
So you heard about Stanley Sweet. You heard about other scientists that since at least as we know, the 30s, they've had knowledge about alternate energy sources that are infinite, that are free, that solve our personal, our country, everybody's energy needs. This is the biggest piece of the puzzle of the UFO, quote unquote. It's kind of too narrow because it's ultimately a larger classified program that has to become declassified. And it all goes back to the 1951 Patent Act, the Military Secrecy Act, where they would take patents from our best and brightest. This is, again, keep in mind the time period just after World War II, where you patent something that's more than 20% efficient, the military is going to take it from you. All of the inventors knew this, and we've had this, again, if you look at Tesla, the inventor himself, he came over from Europe in the late 30s and actually ended up passing away in a hotel after taking long-term residence in it in New York City. And he had safes and boxes of all of his inventions there specific to 0-point energy. And what did the feds do, the agencies do when Tesla died? They broke into his safes, and we've seen nothing since. So Tesla himself was also on this critical issue of basically solving energy for free, infinite energy. That is where the missing scientists at the beginning of this story that I'm talking about, that's where this comes to. Each one of the missing scientists in the last year that have just left their home, going on a hike, never came back. All of these individuals are part of classified programs specific to energy and alternate propulsion mechanisms. We're never going to see some of that stuff in the UFO declassification. We know that. Obviously, they're not going to declassify everything. The bigger issue, though, is this. Are they going to get close to starting to help the general public get past where the whistleblower narrative is specific to 0-point energy, to energy solutions, and alternate propulsion? They're getting close. My question of you is, are we going to get there? We'll see. If you've yet to subscribe to the channel, we'd love to have you do that. You can do that right over my left shoulder here. Just click on my face. That's the subscribe button for YouTube. And we also have a few other videos up here over my right shoulder. Pick your favorite, and that'll be coming up next. We'll see you in the next video.